This is the true story of Becky Watts, a wonderful, cheerful and caring teenage girl who always achieved her goals. She had no enemies and was always ready to fight to the end, but one cold February morning she suddenly disappeared on her way to her boyfriend's house. Where will the police investigation begin? At what point on her route did she vanish? Where should they look for suspects? The answers to these questions can be found by thoroughly analyzing this case. Becky Watts was born on June 14, 1998. Her father Darren and mother Tanya split up before she was born. Becky spent her entire childhood with just her mom. Becky, who was usually just called Becky by everyone, was a cheerful girl with a somewhat dark sense of humor. At the same time, she was incredibly caring and had a sincere, kind heart. Her mother lost custody because she was unable to properly care for the children. But soon after Becky and her brother Danny moved in with their father, the girl truly blossomed. Her family was small but very close-knit. Becky also had a tight circle of friends whom she loved very much. And everyone sincerely loved her in return. Later, Becky's father started a relationship with a woman named Angia who already had a son named Nathan. In 2013, Angia and Darren got married, expanding the family, and Becky was a bridesmaid at the wedding. Thursday, February 19, 2015 was a cold and gloomy day in Crown Hill, Bristol. But overall it was a typical weekday. That day, Angia went for a doctor's appointment and was the last person to see Becky. They said goodbye around 11:25 a.m. and Becky headed to her boyfriend's house, where she never arrived. Becky's parents always kept a close eye on their daughter's life. She never ran away from home or made her family worry by coming home late. The day before she disappeared, Becky talked to her friend who said Becky's behavior was normal with nothing strange or alarming about it. On the day she vanished, Becky took her laptop and cell phone, but she didn't have any money, extra clothes, or makeup with her. She didn't tell anyone where she was going and stopped responding to text messages or calls. By 3 p.m., her family was in a panic. Becky's father desperately posted on Facebook, "Please, if you've seen or heard anything about my daughter, just let me know she's safe." None of her friends had seen Becky since she disappeared. Her father immediately contacted the police and a search began right away. Only 24 hours had passed, but law enforcement was troubled by the fact that Becky's social media pages were inactive. In many ways she was a typical 16-year-old girl who constantly communicated with her group of friends, but after vanishing there were no messages from her. Something was wrong. 6 teams were involved in the search, examining various locations including a section of forest and 3 residential buildings. Police college cadets and employees from the National Crime Agency were called in to help. A helicopter was also deployed to survey the area from the air. The nature reserve on Troopers Hill and local lakes were searched as well, but there was no sign of Becky anywhere. The hashtag #FindBecky spread on social media and the police used Twitter to inform the public about the girl's disappearance. On Wednesday, February 25, Becky's family was asked to leave the house so a search could be conducted, but no traces of the girl were found. As the investigation continued, police established that the last people to see Becky were her stepbrother Nathan Matthews and his girlfriend Shauna Hoare. 28-year-old Nathan lived not far from the Watts family and often visited them to see his mother. It was difficult to locate the couple for questioning, but eventually the police managed to contact them and invite them to the station. Shauna described the events of the day Becky was last seen. According to her, she and Nathan arrived at the house around 11 a.m. and unlocked the door with spare keys that were kept under a trash can. When they entered the house, they heard music coming from upstairs and assumed Becky was up there. Shauna went to the kitchen to get cigarettes, then went outside to smoke. As she was coming back in, she heard the front door shut. Shauna didn't look at the time and in that moment didn't think about where the girl might have gone. So she didn't even give it any thought. But she's certain Becky left the house after 11 a.m. Shauna heard footsteps, so she assumed Becky left the house in a bad mood. She thought it was just another teenage tantrum. During questioning, Shauna acted joyful and cheery while Nathan was completely carefree. This behavior was surprising. Even stranger was that their accounts matched almost perfectly. Usually when people witness the same events, there are some differences in the details of how they describe it. But in any case, according to the couple, Becky left the house around 11 a.m. in a foul, angry mood. And after that, no one saw or heard from the girl. Police brought in the Major Crimes Investigation Unit. Together with a team of forensic experts, they went to Becky's house again to look for any clues about the girl's whereabouts. And this time they made a chilling discovery. Traces of blood were found on the door frame in Becky's room. The stains were barely visible, but they were there. And fingerprints were also found on them. While experts worked on analyzing the fingerprints, law enforcement asked Nathan and Shauna to come back for further questioning. They were asked to describe in detail what they did and where they were during the week after Becky disappeared. Shauna was also asked about her thoughts on the situation. The girl said Nathan hadn't shared any details with her, but he was very upset about what happened to Becky. After all, he was worried about his mother, for whom Becky was like her own daughter, and he understood this event would destroy her. Shauna and Nathan claimed they didn't participate in the search because they allegedly didn't know about it. They only found out Becky was being looked for on social media after the search operation ended. Shauna got a bit mixed up in her testimony, saying that week they had planned to go visit her mom and spend time with her. But the girl couldn't clearly say which days and wasn't sure exactly when this was supposed to happen. Nathan met Becky when she was only 2 years old. This happened when his mother Angia started dating Darren, Becky's father. From the very beginning, Nathan disliked Becky, explaining that he didn't want anyone interfering in his relationship with his mother. However, he treated Becky's brother well. Nathan really did spend a lot of time with Danny, but always avoided contact with Becky, not wanting to have anything to do with her. There was a 10-year age difference between Nathan and Becky. They were never close. One time, when Nathan turned 19, he arrived at the family home with 4 young girls in the back seat of his car. All these girls looked no older than 12. Darren, Becky's father, refused to let Nathan bring them inside and insisted he take them home immediately. In 2008, when Nathan was 21, he introduced his family to his new girlfriend Shauna. He lied and said she was 19. In reality, Shauna was only 15. Darren sensed the deception and demanded Nathan take Shauna home right away. But Nathan ignored his request and continued the relationship with the girl. The couple wanted to have a daughter, but Darren was adamantly against it, insisting it was wrong. However, before long they did end up having a baby girl. And at the time of Becky's disappearance, Shauna was pregnant again, this time with twins. After the second interrogation, the couple was released again, but not for long. The results came back from the analysis of the fingerprints found in blood on the door frame in Becky's room. The blood belonged to Becky and the prints belonged to her stepbrother Nathan. On Saturday, February 28, 2015, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare were arrested at their home in Bristol. They were taken into custody on suspicion of kidnapping and brought to the police station for further questioning. The police's top priority was finding Becky. They asked Shauna to tell her version of events. The girl expressed no fears or suspicions about the involvement of her boyfriend Nathan or anyone else in the family in Becky's disappearance. Meanwhile, a team of forensic specialists was sent to Shauna and Nathan's house in Bristol. They found the residence in complete disorder. There was a terrible mess in every room, with garbage and various items scattered everywhere. But one detail stood out against the backdrop of the general chaos. Despite the fact that the whole house was drowning in trash, half of the bathroom where the bathtub was located was spotlessly clean. This did not fit into the overall picture at all. Over the next 2 days, the forensic team continued to carefully examine Shauna and Nathan's house. Due to the terrible condition of the residence, it was an extremely difficult task. But eventually 2 receipts provided the long-awaited clue. They were dated February 20th, the same day Becky disappeared. According to the receipts, an electric circular saw, safety goggles, gloves and bags had been purchased. The case took a sinister turn. Surveillance cameras from the hardware store confirmed that Nathan was the one who bought the items. After this, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare were arrested again, this time on suspicion of murdering Becky Watts. From that moment, a full-scale murder investigation began. On Tuesday, March 3, 2015 at 10:26 a.m., an emergency call came in to the police. An unknown person read out a letter from Nathan. Nathan himself childishly refused to listen to the words, covering his ears with his fingers so as not to hear the sound. The letter said, "I, Nathan Charles Matthews, acknowledge my responsibility for the death of Rebecca Watts on February 19, 2015. That day I came to Crown Hill in Bristol together with my girlfriend Shauna Hoare in my car. I had a stun gun, handcuffs, tape and a mask with me. It occurred to me to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her. I wanted to frighten her and teach her a lesson. In my opinion, she was selfish and her attitude towards my mother was wrong. I intended to make her pay for it." A few minutes after arriving, Shauna said she wanted to smoke and went out into the garden. "I went to the trunk of the car, took out a bag of things, then went upstairs to Becky's room and knocked. She answered, and I asked her to come out for a minute." When Nathan was asked to explain what was written in the letter and tell the details of what happened, it was very difficult for him to talk. He wrung his hands, cried and could barely find the words. Nathan claimed he only wanted to scare Becky so that she would start to value life more and show gratitude to the people who cared for her. He thought that thanks to the fright, she would realize how lucky she was that nothing bad was done to her. But at the same time, Nathan wanted to teach Becky a lesson for her disrespectful attitude towards his mother. He insisted that he only planned to scare the girl and then let her go unharmed. But something went wrong. Nathan's confession led the police to a house on Barton Court in Bristol. In the evening, 12 days after the disappearance, Becky's dismembered body was found there. The residents of the house where the remains were discovered were arrested on charges of assisting the perpetrator. They insisted they had no idea what was inside the suitcases and bags. The body parts were wrapped in plastic bags and cling film. Cat litter was used in an attempt to absorb the blood. Salt was also sprinkled inside to hide the smell of decomposition. The autopsy showed that Becky had desperately fought for her life. Over 40 injuries were found on her body. Most likely, the girl died of suffocation. Someone covered her mouth and nose with their hand. After death, her body was stabbed at least 15 times. Despite the fact that Nathan Matthews confessed everything to the police, it remained to be determined what role his girlfriend Shauna played in this. Did she really know nothing? Shauna herself claimed that she first found out about Nathan's involvement in the crime when he wrote the confession letter to the police on his own. When asked if she herself was involved in Becky's death, Shauna replied that the police would not find any evidence against her. She said she had no contact with Becky either while she was alive or after the girl's death. However, these words hardly befit an innocent person. Law enforcement recreated a timeline of the last hours of Becky's life in video format. According to it, on Thursday, February 19th, Becky returned home after spending the night at a friend's house. At 10:50 a.m., Shauna and Nathan arrived at Becky's house. Before that, they stopped at Tesco for batteries. They knew for certain the girl would be home alone, as her stepmother Angia had a scheduled doctor's appointment that day. Usually Nathan left the car parked on the side of the road, but this time he put the vehicle in the driveway in such a way that the trunk was facing the house. At 11:03 a.m., Becky sent her boyfriend a final message mentioning she was listening to music. After that, she stopped communicating. That's when Becky was attacked and strangled. Then the girl's body was placed in the trunk of the car. At 12:45 p.m., Angia came home, while Nathan and Shauna pretended as if nothing had happened. At 5 p.m., Becky's boyfriend came over, worried that she wasn't responding to calls or messages. Angia agreed this behavior was atypical for the girl. At 7 p.m., after spending the day with family, Nathan and Shauna went to their own home. Becky's body was still lying in the trunk of their car. When they arrived at their place, they brought the dead girl inside. And then, as if nothing had happened, they ordered pizza and Chinese food. Later, Nathan Matthews staged a phone call from a friend, pretending the friend needed his help. This became a reason to go to the hardware store. At some point that night, Nathan dismembered Becky's body in the bathroom of his house. And at 12:20 a.m., he went to the store again to buy a product for unclogging drains. A little later, Shauna sent Nathan a message asking when he would finish the job. And just a few hours later, at 4 a.m. the next day, Becky was officially declared missing. That same day, Shauna shared Darren's Facebook post pleading for his daughter to come home. On February 21st, Nathan and Shauna visited an Asda store where they bought garbage bags, gloves, cling film and bleach. The next day they went to a discount store where they purchased sponges, another pack of garbage bags and tape. After that, the couple went to Sainsbury's for cling film. On February 23rd, police came to Nathan and Shauna's house for the first time to talk to them, but no one answered the knock at the door. On February 24th at 8:19 p.m., a surveillance camera recorded a white van driving down Cotton Mill Lane. As it later turned out, that's where Becky's body was found. Nathan continued to insist he only wanted to scare the girl to make her value life more. He claimed the plan simply went wrong, not as expected. After 96 hours of interrogation, he was charged with murdering his stepsister. There wasn't enough evidence against Shauna to charge her with murder, so she was accused of providing false testimony during the investigation. However, the police did not stop looking for proof of her guilt. For 8 weeks after the body was discovered, law enforcement thoroughly studied the life of this couple. They analyzed records of their phone conversations and data from their computers. In one of the conversations, an interesting clue was found. Although a number of messages had been deleted, officers were able to recover them. It turned out the couple had discussed kidnapping a girl and keeping her in the attic. In addition, on their computers they searched for pornographic material involving girls around the same age as Becky. Shauna also sent Nathan a message about how she was driving and saw a girl who looked like Becky. Shauna wrote that she wanted to beat up that girl and bring her to their home. These details cast serious doubt on Shauna's innocence, which she so insistently declared to the police. Moreover, her DNA was found on one of the packages containing body parts, as well as on one of the masks. The girl's involvement in the crime was proven, and on June 22 Shauna Hoare was officially charged with the murder of Becky Watts. On October 6, 2015, the trial of Nathan and Shauna began at the Royal Courts of Justice in Bristol. Becky's family was shocked to learn that 2 years before her death, the girl had told one of her friends how Nathan described his plan to kill her in the smallest details. Becky did not share this information with anyone else. Becky's friends said that Nathan often threatened the girl, and only in the last while did she start to take it seriously and truly fear him. She felt that now it wasn't just empty threats. Former colleagues of Nathan who were allowed to be present at the court hearings noted that during his military service, he was self-confident but completely lonely, and later became very irritable and often started shouting. Those in the courtroom were shocked and they heard the chilling details of how Nathan and Shauna shared an unhealthy obsession with murdering young girls. Prosecutor William Mousley emphasized that in addition to their obvious hostility towards Becky Watts, the couple had another motive related to their perverse attraction to minors. The time came for the jury to deliberate, and soon they delivered a unanimous verdict. It took them only 3 hours to conclude that the couple had entered into a criminal conspiracy to kidnap 16-year-old Becky Watts and then intentionally killed her. Shauna Hoare was acquitted of murder but found guilty of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Nathan Matthews was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment with the right to parole no earlier than 33 years. As he was led out of the courtroom, he couldn't even look his family members in the eye. Thank you for watching this story. Write your thoughts about it in the comments. Don't miss the future videos, subscribe and like the channel. Take care of yourself and people you love.